Alright guys, we're going to be looking at using Photoshop to do what we consider to be some tasteful retouches. Now I've given you guys an entire folder called Unflattering Business Headshots that is full of exactly that. We're going to go with the last one in here. I'm just going to save this to my computer. And we're just going to straight up open this in Photoshop. So just File Open, and then go find that file that I downloaded. And there it is. Now, first problem here is that this picture is sideways. So I'm going to go to Image Rotation, Image Rotation, and then rotate it. And then I'm going to reset my workspace because it was acting weird. Just like with the restorations, the first thing you want to do here is duplicate your background layer, so you've got a backup copy. So I have just two copies of the same thing stacked up. And first thing I'm going to do now is come in on this picture and use a combination of my clone stamp and my spot heal to just kind of clean up some of these areas where she's got like some zits and spots and stuff like that. And now what I've done is I've made a new layer, and I've got my eyedropper, and I picked up a lighter color off of her. I picked up a lighter skin color. I'm going to set my brush to a soft brush and turn that opacity down. Again, this is all on a new layer. I picked up a skin color. Now the problem is I did not set my opacity initially there, so I'm going to turn that down. Anywhere I paint now, because I picked up that light skin color from her, it's going to give me a nice soft version of basically some foundation to put over her. Now be careful about painting over shadows, which is what you just saw me do over there. I'm going to go back and fix that in a second here. But I'm just trying to cover up these areas where this lady is very, very red. So again, you can see I accidentally painted over the shadow on her nose, which is not what I wanted to do. So be careful about painting over features like that. Now you can use that eyedropper and pick up several different colors depending on what you need. In this case, this is looking pretty good so far. She's already significantly less red and blotchy than she was at the beginning. Alright, now that I have sufficiently gone in here and covered up a bunch of her blotchy skin, I'm going to right click on this layer and say merge down to make it part of that. Now I can see how that looked compared to the old skin. Now I'm going to duplicate that layer that I just messed with yet again. So I've got two copies where I've cleaned up her skin. I'm going to go into filter. I'm going to go into a setting called noise, and then I'm going to go into dust and scratches. Now it doesn't sound like what you'd want to do here, but trust me, it is. So you got two things you're controlling here. One is how blurry this is, and one is how much detail it lets come through the blur. So what you want to do here is adjust it so that it is blurry yet grainy, if that makes sense. You want their features to be blurred out, but you want some of that just texture still there, because that's what's going to make it look like this person still has pores on their skin. Once you've gotten it blurry yet grainy, it should look like almost sandy. You're going to say okay. And now that I've got that, I'm going to go into layer, I'm going to go into layer mask, and I'm going to choose hide all. Now what this is going to do is act like I used my layer mask, my little Japan flag down here, except what it's going to do is instead of it being a white square, it's a black square over here. What that means is it has blanked out this entire layer, and anywhere I paint with a white paintbrush, it's going to bring back the original blurry image. So that means if I set my brush to soft and I set the opacity down, I can slowly and subtly bring in that blurry version of this picture to help disguise some of these wrinkles. So your goal here is to not get rid of the wrinkles. You don't want them to go away entirely. We're just making the depth of the shadow on them a little bit less obvious. And that's what keeps this as a tasteful image. So I've just gone in there and I've brushed over her main wrinkly areas, and turning the layer off and on is a really good tool there as far as checking what you have and haven't done so far. And now what I'm doing here is showing you a bad version of that. So when somebody says that a photo looks too airbrushed, this is what they're talking about. I set those blurry settings so high that now when I'm painting her skin back in, she looks like a doll. We don't want to do that. Doing this much retouching is good, alright? Doing this much retouching is bad. So just keep that in mind. We are trying to do a tasteful retouch on this first batch. Don't give me completely porcelain skin, because that's just creepy. So here's our big before versus after. Pretty big difference there. So now we're going to go look at somebody who has some very different problems. He's not as wrinkly, but this man is very shiny and very red. So we're going to deal with that first. Same deal, I'm going to open him up, duplicate his background layer, and the first thing I want to do before I even start fixing his zits is I'm going to go into Image, Adjustments, and Hue Saturation. What I'm going to do here is just ever so slightly shift my hue toward yellow. I want to make his skin less red, so I'm going to shift his hue toward a little bit more yellow, and already he's looking less red than he was to start with. So now that I've done that, I'm going to do what I did in the previous picture and just come in there with that spot heal, maybe that clone stamp if I need it, and just kind of fix some of these little problem areas on him. Now, some of these small areas where he's really shiny I can fix with the spot heal, but things like his forehead and his cheek, I'm really going to have to come back in there and do what I did on the lady, which is get my eyedropper, sample a lighter skin color on him, then get my paintbrush, make sure it's on a soft brush, that the opacity is very low, and then just paint over those areas on him to make him look less shiny. Again, you don't want to completely get rid of it. You don't want it to be like he's totally flat. However, we want that like really white, bright area to be basically gone. So that's why I'm painting over him. Again, using the eyedropper to pick up a skin color and then just painting straight over it. Alright, so we've made him a little bit less shiny at this point. So now basically our next step is going to be doing what we've done before. And we are going to take this top layer, duplicate it again. And once I've duplicated it, it's doing the same thing we did with the lady. Gonna go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. Get it blurry yet grainy. Honestly, these settings are actually already looking pretty good. He's blurry yet grainy. Then we're gonna go into Layer, Layer Mask, Hide All. Grab your paintbrush, set the paintbrush to white, make sure it's on a soft brush, and we're just going to paint right over his wrinkles to make them a little bit less obvious. So really your main steps here to keep in mind are make sure you're always duplicating your layers so you've got backup copies. Filter, Noise, Dust, and Scratches, and then Layer, Layer Mask, Hide All. And you're going in there and always using that paintbrush to just subtly bring in where they need to be retouched. Alright, and so we've done a pretty decent job cleaning him up. I was just kind of coming down, getting some of that beard stubble there. And there we've got our before versus after. Pretty big difference on this guy, mostly because he was so red to start with. Alright, so again, these are your tasteful edits. So we're going to get into the not tasteful edits very soon here.